Well, we have to also recognize the historical moment. You're in a position where, whether Europe wants to admit it or not, European power in the world is declining, and that's impossible to stop. It's just part of the historical forces. It was unnatural, Europe's rise, much later than it wants to admit, after the 1850s really, to become dominant over massive historical civilizations like China and India, for example, and even the so-called Middle East to a certain degree, and Africa. Europe having that asymmetrical and disproportionate power was never going to last. It was never tenable. People were going to resist, and eventually, like all empires, people were going to be put back in their correct position. We are in a historical moment where that, because of China, because of the BRICS, because of various other things that are going on in the world, because of historical forces, the influence of Europe over the rest of the world is declining. What we've got to look about is, if a people are brought up with a diet telling them they've been superior since the dawn of evolution, when it becomes self-evident that that is not the case, what is going to be the reaction of that? It's not going to be a humble, yeah, actually we need to accept that our power should be proportional to the percentage of humanity that we represent. You're going to get resentment, you're going to get frustration, and that frustration can be manipulated, as it always has been, by people in power, to make them believe that somehow immigrants, so-called immigrants, don't belong here, or even that they are immigrants. When my grandmother, as with every other Caribbean, as with most other Asians that have ended up in this country, when they came to this country, they were not immigrants, they were citizens of the British Commonwealth, moving from one Commonwealth country to another. If you want to go out around the world and say you are the mother country, and be the mothers of 52 nations, don't then act like a victim when your children come home. Come to the place. They're just following the wealth. If you want to take the wealth from Jamaica, from Grenada, from St. Lucia, from India, if you want to have people from all those places, from Kenya, from Zimbabwe, volunteer in your army, fight for you in various world wars, etc., right? And then the wealth of all those places gets sucked into this place, makes this place so rich. Don't be surprised if the economic conditions in their countries are made so difficult they can't make a living there, that they follow the wealth. They're only following the wealth from their own countries. They would have stayed in. We would have stayed probably in our own countries if the wealth hadn't have come here, and if it wasn't so difficult and wasn't deliberately made so difficult to maintain a living in those places. So all of that historical background can easily be manipulated by people who've been taught somehow that Britain is a homogenous white country, which to anyone who's read even 5 pages of history, they know is absolute nonsense. The Roman legions that invaded this country 2,000 years ago were multicultural. The Phoenicians that were very probably, we know, in Cornwall mining for tin 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. The fact that Queen Elizabeth I issued a letter to the Lord Mayor of London and his aldermen in 1596 complaining about how many blackamoors were already in this country. So there were already significant numbers of black people in this country in 1596 for it to be an immigration problem. We can fast forward to 1731, where the Lord Mayor of London again issued a proclamation preventing black people from learning a trade or a skill. So this issue isn't new. But the problem is it's casted in a sort of post-World War II, all these brown people from countries we've got no idea why we have a connection to came here. And so it's about re-educating people and making them understand how using the issues of immigration, of social security, of all these other things, and getting us to buy into the belief that these foreigners are the problem, is a way of distracting everyday working class people from the very real oppression and theft that is occurring every single day.